Hi crafters, this is Raquel with Paints and Glitter and I welcome you to my channel. Today we are crafting with Paper Rose Studio papers. I am using the collection called Wedding Blooms, and this is a gorgeous collection of papers that you can get in 6x6, also in 12x12, but today we'll be using this smaller size, and they are 18 double-sided pattern papers. You get 3 each of 12 designs. And they are printed on 200 GSM papers, so you do get some little cut aparts as you see here. They're really, really pretty. The images are nice and crisp, and the papers are really nicely saturated as well. So as you can tell, there are some really delicate little images here, and of course, being wedding themed, it's absolutely darling. Very, very elegant, by the way. And I also picked up the embossed die cuts from this collection, but you can pick up other pieces to this collection so that if you like to fussy cut or if you want some other ephemera, there's more, and I'll be linking everything in the description bar below. But as you can see here, these are uniquely beautiful. You get 4 sheets and they are A5. And these do pop out. They are also 200 GSM card. They're beautifully, brightly printed, and they also have that gorgeous shine already added. I'll be also using this die that says blessings and this little collection of tags. I'll only be using one today, but these are the stitch tags. So in the future, I'll have another video with that. But to begin, we'll be taking a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 12. This happens to be 80-pound linen weave card in the color cream, and you'll score this at 2 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches, and at 10 inches along that 12-inch edge. So nice and easy. Now you can bring this over to a paper cutter that has a blade. Insert it so that that long piece is right at the 1.5-inch line. Then pierce this with that blade so that you cut from the 2-inch to the 10-inch mark. So I like to run that blade back and forth, get a crisp line there, and then move that paper all the way up to the 4-inch line. And you're going to repeat the same cut, placing the blade right in at the 2-inch mark, and then going all the way down to 10 inches, and then move it back so you get a crisp cut. So you're going to have that center portion now cut into that paper, and your fold lines are going to follow the pattern of mountain, valley, mountain, valley. So the very first one, you can start burnishing and do the opposite fold, as you can see here. So what I recommend, of course, is that you're nice and gentle with this paper. Because you have a cut line in the center particularly, it'll be easier for it to get kind of out of sorts. So you do want to take your time here to create a nice crisp fold, and the best tool for that, of course, is a paper creaser, or as it's best known, a bone folder. So go ahead and burnish all of those lines. Then once you're done burnishing all of these and you have a nice crisp line, you're going to see that zigzag shape. Take the center portion and now fold those in the opposite manner that you had done so before. So where you had the mountain, it's going to now be a valley, and vice versa. This is going to help you have a card that looks like this. And we're now going to decorate it using the 6x6 Wedding Blooms collection of papers from Paper Rose. I've selected this gorgeous paper here with the balloons and did mat it with some gold satin card. And what I've done is that I use the measurements, of course, of each little section here, but I cut the gold paper down by 1/8 of an inch, and then the pattern paper down by another 1/8 of an inch. So I hope that makes sense. So just scale down, but then you have these little rectangle pieces. These have the floral pattern, and you do want to open your card when you are decorating it so you don't accidentally place your little panels in the wrong place there. But you can see I've also used a little striped piece of card. And what's wonderful about these papers is that because they're double-sided, they're very easy to match. And It gives a cohesive finish to your cards. Here, I'm going to show you how I'm going to use one of these die cuts. I've pierced the center because I don't want that stark white color to be part of this card. So I am going to fussy cut that portion out. It's super easy because the paper is 200 GSM in weight. It actually makes it a whole lot easier to fussy cut. And that's going to be on the front of our card, but I'm also going to layer on top of this image of this gorgeous cake. Now, if fussy cutting is not for you, do not fret. You can definitely pick up different ephemera packs from the same collection or any other collection from Paper Rose. They have some gorgeous pieces that you will love crafting with. I don't mind fussy cutting. This is how I first began card making, and I actually quite enjoy it. So I just went ahead and removed that little cake. And now I do want a softer backing to this frame, and this is why I removed the white center, and this is what's great is you can customize these. So what I'm using is a piece of vellum. It's going to give this a softer finish, placing that right behind that gorgeous rectangular frame. And this is what's going to be placed behind that cake. And I also have another little floral cluster that I've cut in half, but I don't want to cover up that darling bow, so I am actually going to take one half of that, place it behind the cake, and I'm also going to take a blade and I'm going to cut just the very edge of that bow, and you'll see why in a moment. So you can see there it's going to be fully attached, but it's just going to have that one little portion that will lift, and now I'm going to tuck the rest of those little flowers right behind there. So I'm going to strategically adhere this so that the little bow is still front and center there, if you will. And now the little flowers will adorn that one side of the cake only because I want it to stand out a little bit more from that busy background with the balloons. So of course you could pick a different paper for that left-hand side. I just wanted it to be nice and festive and fun. And a little later I'm going to add a little bit more to that. But here what I've done is added some dimensional adhesive, as you can tell. And I've done this quite on purpose because I don't want this to adhere flat on my card. I want that little bit of shadow that's going to be created with the vellum. And I want to make sure that it does not adhere to that kinetic portion of the card, because if not, it won't open, of course. So that's why I added the foam as I did. And now I'm just going to continue decorating these panels. Here for the bottom portion, what I decided to do is to add a little ribbon. So I'm adding double-sided adhesive to the back of the strip of card that I'll be using, and using a sheer blue ribbon that matches with the paper. Just simply going to wrap this around that piece of card and then cut away the excess. I'm also adding more double-sided adhesive and adding a second ribbon here. Just going to center that and also create a little bow in the front. Then I'm backing this up with plenty of adhesive because I don't want this ribbon to move. So I did use double-sided strips of adhesive. I did use a total of 3. And I am going to supplement that with liquid adhesive. I just like a nice secure finish to the cards that I make. This is going to go on top of that gold card that I'm using throughout. And now this can go right in the center of this card. Because the bow is not too bulky, it's not going to ruin this. So that center portion there, as you can see, was another panel that had florals. And here's where I'm adding this darling sentiment. It's very nice and delicate. So I did cut it out twice, once out of that gold color card that I've been using, and also out of a blue. So this is going to create a drop shadow, and that's why I'm using tweezers, because it's nice and delicate. I want to make sure that I can add the drop shadow by adhering one sentiment right on top of another and then backing that up with the shadow piece that you can cut out with the matching die. And now I'm backing that up with another shadow piece that's cut out of 300 GSM card so that it's nice and sturdy. Here on the right hand side, I'm adding more of those same florals, yet I'm adding another little image that was included. This time I double matted that with the striped paper and the gold, and that was the image of that beautiful cathedral. And now I'm adding these florals to the right side, that very last column, where of course you can add a sentiment in this card or add a little note for the bride and groom. And I'm cutting away the little florals that are now on the edge of this paper because I don't want that to accidentally kind of hang out of the side of the card, if you know what I mean. So I'm double matting that as well with the gold card, and that completes this card. However, I did want to add a bit more shine, and this is what I meant earlier. So I did take a medium that's called Crystal Glaze, and matching the shine that's already there, I'm actually adding a little bit more to the edges of the little ephemera in the front and also that frame. And I'm adding some chunky glitter, and this is going to have full on shine on the front of this card, and that's the result there. I will be making a second one. It's going to have the same shape and same style. However, I am switching out the papers. So here what I'm doing is, as I had done before, I am going to be placing a piece of that light blue ribbon on this balloon themed paper. And I'm also going to adhere the blue ribbon to create a little bow here. The perspective, however, is different because this is that vertical little column piece that will go on the left-hand side on the front of the card. So you can see there, I backed that up nicely with some strong adhesive. And this balloon paper is a tiny bit different from the other one. So the other one has more gold in it and it has little cream colored flowers. This one does not. So you want to take a peek at those papers and see that there is quite a variety there. So depending on who the recipient is, you may want to choose one with the flowers or without, but I love that there are options. And then here what I've done is taken another piece and added those gorgeous little cupcakes. And for the front and center, I'm adding yet another little cupcake here, and that one has the little sentiment that says happy birthday, and that was from the cut aparts. So what I did is I added foam adhesive so that that will have a little bit of dimension there. Now there is a paper that is directional, has some little hearts there, but I don't think that's of any consequence because it's so subtle that I think if I didn't mention it, no one would notice. So I did place those on the top and bottom. And then on the center here, I'm adding another piece of ephemera with these gorgeous flowers from the die cut pieces. And that's going to be topped off with that sentiment that says blessings yet again. However, this time I did cut it out of 300 GSM card. I also cut the shadow out of vellum, and then the uppermost sentiment is actually that gorgeous mirror card. So what this does is it creates a nice sturdy foundation for that sentiment. But because I want those flowers to still be standing out on this card, then using that vellum allows that to happen as well. And then here's another little cut apart. I also double matted that one with the striped paper and the navy. And as you can see, you could place it in the front of this card. I've decided to place it on that right column along with more little cupcakes. So this one's a little bit faster only because I'm creating the same style of card. So if you got the gist of the first one, then this is going to be much easier to follow. However, if you do have any questions about this, then please feel free to reach out in the comments of my video. I'm always happy to respond. And here at the bottom, I'm yet again adding more of these flowers. What I love about crafting with these collections is that it is so very elegant to have paper that has a clear image on it. When it's nice and crisp, it just gives you a nice professional finish. And here I'm cutting away again the portions that hang over to the side of that paper because I want this to be able to open and close. So here I just tilted my scissors a tiny little bit, and that allowed me to cut away that little edge without cutting that blue paper. So I'll adhere this to that rightmost edge of that card. And because that paper is now in the horizontal perspective, you can use it as lines to write the sentiment for the recipient. And there you see how easily that closes. Now let's move on to this other card, and I did lose a little bit of my video, so I do apologize. However, what I was going to show is that because there are 3 papers of each image, then you can really have some fun with this. So what I'm doing here is that I'm taking one of the papers. Now I had already used half of it on another card, and there was this portion left over with a cathedral and this gorgeous antique car. I did not want this to go to waste, so what I did is, as you can tell, is that I fussy cut the portion of this that I don't want. And I'm sorry, I was losing my voice. So I fussy cut the portion I did not want. And then yet again, I used the actual tag die cut and cut into the paper so that I could have the image of that vehicle. Now, before I started hearing those together, I'm going to show you here. I take some ink and I just swoop that. I don't know how to say that, but I applied it onto some 300 GSM card just to give some texture. And this is where I'm going to be cutting into with that blessings die. So I did cut that out of that paper. And this is just to make sure that the paper matches what my card is going to turn out like. So I love that you can do that with inks, of course, you know, but here's what the card front should end up looking like. Is it's going to have several layers, but what I'm doing here is that I'm starting off with a 6¼ inch card, square card base. So as you can see, I'm running that ink along the edges because the foundation was white and I wanted to tone that down a little bit. And there are some creams and browns in this paper, so that's why I chose to do that. So here's the foundation of the front of this card. So this matting layer is 6x6 because this is a full sheet. This is the one that I cut away with by taking the scissors and just fussy cutting the portions that I didn't want. And as you can tell, there's a lot of foam adhesive here. So what I'm doing is that I am creating a more in-depth little scene on the front of this card by popping out portions of this image. Now you could do only flowers, you could do only the car, you could do only the cathedral. It really depends on what you want to do. This is a decoupage technique I learned many moons ago, but I like to use it in card making and I think it's a lot of fun. So here's that little vehicle. And I thought this would be great, for instance, if you needed a card for maybe like the father of the bride, just to make that vehicle stand out because it's such a beautiful antique car. Those of you who may like cars as I do might appreciate this, but I wanted just a very simple card that you can make by just making certain elements stand out. So of course you choose whichever element you prefer. I really like this one, and so that is as simple as that goes. So now what's really neat about that is it has some depth, but you really have to be looking at the card to notice. And now here's where you see one of those tags. I cut it out twice, once out of that striped paper in that horizontal perspective and also out of 300 GSM ivory card. That's going to go on the top right portion of this card front. And I'm also going to decorate that with yet another cluster of flowers. Now I did fussy cut the white border off of that because I didn't want that to stand out too much. And I did cut the sentiment shadow out of watercolor card so that it would be a nice light creamy color. And I also did add some pearlescent wax on that sentiment. But at the end you'll see it again. Now there's one more little card that I made for you. So this is the Stitched Squares collection of dies, and I've cut several panels. So here's one. The foundation, by the way, is a 4¼ inch square card. So I've used those dies to cut papers that will go ahead and layer on this card. So the innermost layer is going to just be for you to write your sentiment on the inside, but I really like that stitched edge. It just gives a little bit more of a finished card look, if that makes any sense. But I'm adhering this panel first, and this is the one that has all of those little boxes with the wedding rings. I think it's so, so pretty. So it's a little bit busy. However, for a layering piece, I really liked it. So this panel here, I actually tattered quite a bit with a tracing wheel. So those of you who are old school as me know what that's all about. It will pierce. It's meant for transferring fabric patterns, but in this case I used it on paper and then tattered the edges of that stripe paper. That's going to be that second layer. The third layer is again those pretty balloons. Now this is the one that does not have the flowers on it, as you can tell, but on this I'm placing yet another piece of ephemera, which is the embossed die cut. I also fussy cut the white edge off of that. And now lastly, I'm placing that darling little image that matches the busy paper that I mentioned, because it has the little box with the ring inside. So that's another fun thing to do, of course, is to match the background to the focal image of a little card. And just because it's small doesn't mean that it can't be mighty. That's what I would call it. But it does say congratulations. And I think this would be wonderful for a bride with a little note inside and maybe a gift card. So I have enjoyed using these collections, or this full collection, I should say, of 6x6 papers and die cuts. It's been so lovely to be able to work with such beautiful papers. Let me know which card you prefer. Don't forget there are links below all of my videos so that you can pick up these items if you're interested. And as I always say, I do hope that you can be inspired and be blessed, and I thank you so much for watching.